Seattle mayor defies Trump, promised to house 500 homeless before World Cup, rejects sweeps agenda. On Sunday, February 1st, newly elected Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson announced an extraordinarily ambitious plan that placed the city on a direct collision course with the Trump administration's immigration and urban policy agenda. President Trump had recently threatened to pull FIFA World Cup matches from Seattle if the city's homeless populations were not cleaned up before the tournament begins on June 15th, a thinly veiled demand for aggressive sweeps that would displace unhoused people rather than house them. Rather than capitulate to this crude ultimatum, Wilson responded with audacity. Her administration would create 500 new shelter units, including tiny home villages, RVs converted into housing and apartments by the time the first match kicked off at Lumen Field. This was fundamentally different from sweeps. Instead of removing visible homelessness by pushing people into neighborhoods outside the city's view, Wilson's plan attempted to actually solve the crisis through housing provision. She had campaigned explicitly on opposing sweeps, arguing that displacement without housing represents a form of organized cruelty rather than policy. Wilson, a self-described socialist who had just defeated the incumbent mayor on a platform opposing criminalization of homelessness, understood the political and practical implications. Hosting the World Cup while conducting visible crackdowns on unhoused populations would generate international criticism and undermine Seattle's global brand as a progressive city. But the decision was also ideologically grounded. She believed the city had a moral obligation to provide housing before removing people from public spaces. Her team immediately moved forward with executive orders to expedite the process, directing city staff to identify publicly owned land, work with nonprofit organizations to open emergency shelter, and coordinate with property owners willing to provide temporary housing solutions. By late January, implementation had begun. Wilson delayed a planned encampment closure in Ballard, but moved forward with removal of an encampment near the University of Washington, which would become a World Cup practice facility for international teams. The pragmatic balance was evident. House people when possible, move forward with necessary removals when housing capacity was available, but never use homelessness as pretext for authoritarian punishment or mass displacement. The Trump administration's interest in the World Cup, Wilson recognized, was leverage, a weapon to force cities to comply with hardline immigration enforcement and social control agendas. She had refused debate, choosing instead to confront the actual crisis rather than perform compliance theater.